Welcome, my friends, to the Sage Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, Michael Murphy returns to the show. Michael is an award-winning director and producer, a political activist, and president of the Coalition Against Geoengineering. As an independent reporter and community organizer, his work includes directing and co-producing the groundbreaking geoengineering documentaries, Why in the World Are They Spraying? And What in the World Are They Spraying? Each film has awakened millions to the environmental threats of the geoengineering programs. In tonight's discussion, Michael will talk to us about his new film, An Unconventional Shade of Gray, which he promises will take a very deep dive into the geoengineering agenda, which includes dispersal techniques which Michael believes can lead to a class action lawsuit. We also discuss how our activism needs to quickly transition from a process of education to a process of action, in order to shut down the December Paris Climate Conference, which will look to legalize geoengineering under the guise of global warming pseudoscience. Michael's initiative, as with most initiatives, requires funding, and in an effort to gather those funds, he is asking folks to please consider donating to his new film by heading over to his GoFundMe page called Michael J. Murphy's Next Film. The site is up and running as we speak, and the link is also included in the show notes below. To kick our conversation off, I asked Michael how the global warming debate is tied into the geoengineering agenda, and here is what he had to say.
So, Michael, how does global warming relate to geoengineering? What's the connection?
Global warming is a very important part of this conversation, and for a number of years, really after we released What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying, I knew that it was something that was important, but also felt very strongly that mentioning it would damage our movement, because there's essentially, in a recent study, a 64-46 percentage in belief systems related to this global warming. 64% of the people do not believe it's valid, 46% of the population. And the real goal of both What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying was aimed at making the public aware of these programs. And we're very effective at that. But I kind of looked at global warming as supporting the agenda, or even mentioning it, would create division. And I saw that. But I always took a stance that eventually it would be time, there would be a time to bring this on the table, to examine it. And I believe that time is now. And the global warming issue has gotten into the geoengineering movement, and I saw it, as predicted, create just a ton of division. And now it's really challenging to go into a geoengineering meeting or a march without people arguing about this issue. However, I really want to point out, when you take a strong stance stating that global warming is real, but then say we don't want geoengineering, we really have to look at that aspect a lot closer. And bottom line is this: it's an opinion-based argument when you support the global warming, and there are a bunch of other implications that we'll talk about. But by opinion-based, if you look at geoengineers, they claim that their programs are to mitigate global warming. We're aware that it's a number of things, including weather control, consolidation of power, world government, Agenda 21. But they're offering a solutions-based argument stating that because global warming is a threat to our planet, that most people will look for a solution despite the negative consequences, the poisoning, the transfer of power. So 46% of the population believes that global warming is real and a threat, so it's highly likely, with the solutions-based argument, that they will accept geoengineering. Now, when you walk into a room, let's say you're trying to wake up a room or wake up, 100 people, who, according to the stats, were probably at critical mass. So about 10-12% of the population, I estimate, is aware of this issue. That means about 90% of our room, or approximately 50% of the people, hold a strong belief system. 62% of the people believe that global warming is not real and that it's not valid. So when you bring in an issue like geoengineering, which is pretty difficult for a lot of people to comprehend, and you strongly contradict their belief system, it becomes exponentially more difficult to wake up the masses. And as we've seen in the past year, I don't think anybody can disagree with this, the global warming issue has really divided this movement and slowed us down. But the real concern that I began looking at this in the dynamics and began to realize we have a France climate meeting that is expected to form a global treaty. And it's all based on this concept that CO2 creates global warming. What I came to realize was geoengineering, because it changes our temperature and it changes our weather system and really creates most of the symptoms of the CO2 global warming issue, because it's not included at all in climate models, and it's probably one of the biggest climate forcers that we have. It's impossible to determine whether the planet's warming. We have jet streams being diverted. There's no way that anybody can get an accurate temperature. And because of that, the models are flawed, but by those who are aware of this and are blaming all of these issues on CO2, it's definitely fraudulent. And right now we're seeing mandates. 500 climate laws coming into effect this year. And in California, we have a carbon tax right now, and they're moving forward with this agenda, saying, look, climate change is real, therefore we have to tax you. And everybody has a carbon footprint. We all use carbon. But I think what people fail to recognize, if this passes, we're going to essentially lose the sovereignty of our nations, including Native American nations that decide to side on. We will have an unelected global body who is going to be micromanaging our lives. It will be a potential trillions of dollars transfer of wealth and a number of other things. And with smart meters on our home, now the power companies have the ability to monitor what appliances we're using, also to, directly measure the energy that we're using. And I think if we allow this to happen, we're looking at just major changes in the way that we live. And right now we can drive freely. We can use our power and pay a higher price, but I think a time is coming very soon where we're all going to have to dramatically reduce our use of energy. And this is a taxation system. And I really feel that, let's say if you leave a light on and you go to work, it's a real possibility that we could get fined, literally $100, whatever the price may be, for accidentally leaving a light on. We're definitely going to be limited in the amount of miles that we can drive. And also, we're giving up our power and our money and our authority to an unelected body. Global government has been an agenda for well over a century. And this is the issue because it's quote-unquote global that they're trying to move forward with it. So I'm very concerned about this. But again, I want to go back and really talk about geoengineering and just the fact that it is not included in models. And you cannot, because of the biggest factor is missing from climate models, you cannot conclude that CO2 is creating the climate change. And because of that, the next film, in Unconventional Shade of Gray, we're demanding that geoengineering is stopped immediately for whether it's a period of 2 years or 5 years. We have yet to determine. I'm talking to attorneys. And that geoengineering is stopped before any climate talks resume. And I think, and we can talk about some of the ways that we will conclusively prove that geoengineering is happening, that it does change our planet's temperature. And I really feel strongly that if moving forward with this basic premise, that we have a very large possibility of getting a court injunction and then blocking the France Climate Treaty. And I think that's the most prudent way to move forward. But if you're supporting global warming, well, global warming is real, but we don't want geoengineering. That is not the way that it works. Geoengineering is being sold as the quickest, most effective manner to supposedly address CO2-induced global warming. So if you're supporting the global warming theory or the global warming agenda, you're inadvertently supporting the legalization of geoengineering programs. And it was interesting because somebody told me, they're already doing it. They don't care if it's legal or not. And that is a lie from the pit of hell. Right now we have critical mass. People are waking up everywhere. And we have the ability today to initiate lawsuits and to create legislation to block these programs. If this climate treaty goes through and we have an unelected body, the IPCC, literally mandating our lives, we will lose the ability to move forward with legal and political action. So it'll make our work exponentially more challenging. And I think it's a major flaw that has entered into the geoengineering movement. I saw this a number of years ago, and I spoke, with a lot of people who were trying to push this message. And I let them know about this and why I thought it was imprudent. However, they went their own way. And here we are today. So what are we going to do? Hopefully we'll talk about today some of the ways that we can move forward and stop these programs.
It's a very good point that you're making. In fact, it's an excellent point that, with these climate conferences, they never bring the geoengineering aspect into it. They deny that they're spraying. They're denying that they are geoengineering. So the whole discussion point becomes extremely suspect. And like you said, if you're not going to bring that into the equation, and they are indeed doing it, regardless of all the denial, they are doing it. All you have to do is look up. Then, it's not a valid discussion point. It's not. It has to be put on the table, and it has to be explained what the contribution is from the programs that they are running today.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's where our place of power is. So I really looked at, the flaws in terms of where we've been going, how it relates to global warming, and how we can stop this. And I believe, even though our court systems are not filled with 100% integrity, I feel strongly that we have the ability, again, to get a court injunction, because this is, for the globalists, this issue is very important for them. And, this is, again, it's a big power grab. And it consolidates an enormous amount of power into the hands of a few at the expense of many people. And it's related to Agenda 21, and we're definitely going to cover that in the third film. But this agenda is very important to the globalists or the global government's agenda, and we have the answer to it. We have the answer to it. And it's because global warming or geoengineering is missing out of the equation. And I almost related it to you. I think during our last conversation, I think I used an analogy, which I've changed a little bit, so I want to use this analogy. So not including geoengineering into the climate models would be like turning your heat up to 90 degrees, sitting inside and saying, oh my God, it's getting warm outside. Oh God, it's so hot. Well, it could be getting warm outside, but you're not taking into account the fact that the heater has been turned up in your home. And you cannot conclude, again, if it's warming outside or even if it's cooling. What you can conclude is, well, let's go back. Let's see if there are any factors in the home. Oh, my God, the heater's turned on. Okay, well, let's go outside. Let's turn off the heater. If you turn off the heater, then I think it's reasonable to conclude over a period of time whether it's warming or cooling outside and both inside. And that's kind of the way that I've been explaining this. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And for those that are listening that continue to believe that this is nothing more than a conspiracy theory, they really have to do some of their homework and their research and go back to the Club of Rome, which essentially has set this whole thing up, where the environment was a big piece of the one world government agenda to be put in place. And to me, Michael, that was the catalyst. It was put out there decades ago, and what we're seeing today is essentially the implementation of that plan. And people have to get their heads wrapped around the fact that these shadow government structures, they exist, they're in place, and they've been in place a long time. They push their agenda very incrementally, and it's all done through propaganda, indoctrination, and mind control techniques.
Yeah, it definitely is, and the agenda definitely has moved forward considerably. If we allow this climate treaty to go through, and again, if we collectively, the one group that has the answer, that can stop this, if we allow the climate meetings to go through, again, it's going to be exponentially, if not impossible, to stop this. So again, whether you believe global warming is real or not, I want people to take a real close look. If that stance helps us with our common goal of getting geoengineering stopped and supporting the global warming theory when you're moving forward with geoengineering activism has no benefit whatsoever. And I've been asking people, how this could benefit our common goal of getting these programs stopped. However, it does support the legalization of geoengineering. It does support the Agenda 21, the transfer of wealth, the global governance, all things that are not beneficial for us. And it does create division within our movement. So I'm hoping that people can lay that belief system on the side. And again, I've asked people continuously, if somebody could tell me how we can get accurate temperature readings with ongoing climate geoengineering chemtrail movements going on, please let me know how we can get accurate temperatures. Nobody has been able to do that. So I'm very confident that moving forward in this capacity, and we're working on an action plan right now, will be the quickest way to get geoengineering stopped. And again, I can't stress the importance. You cannot support the global warming agenda and say we don't want geoengineering. When you allow global government or a foreign body to micromanage your life, there's no question that geoengineering will be legalized and will be implemented legally. And that creates, a number of other challenges. And we spoke about the inability to wage a lawsuit or the inability, to move forward politically. But it's also going to create an open-funded propaganda or public perception campaign which will allow the mainstream media to sell this to the public as something good. Right now, we're pretty much the only voices, other than a couple of mainstream media outlets, that's really getting the message out. But again, if we allow this global climate treaty, and thanks to Max Bliss and all the other people who have been working and helping me to become aware of this, it's going to be a much greater of a battle. So please do not support the global warming when you're moving forward with geoengineering, because it's really, I think, done a lot of damage.
Now, Michael, doesn't the data also show, though, that there has been no global warming over the last, 16 to 17 years?
I believe it has, but there's so much contradiction in there. And, I don't even argue the point. I take a middle ground, and my ground is we don't know what the planet's doing because they're geoengineering. So if you take, let's say, a temperature reading in the Arctic. Well, right now we have this polar vortex out of California that's diverting warmer air up into the Arctic. So is it warming? Yeah, it probably is warming up in that area. But last time we were on the show, Mike, I think it was 2 degrees in North Carolina.
Right.
It was like 47 degrees in Anchorage, and that was because of the diversion of the jet stream. So would it be safe to conclude that, oh my God, we have global cooling because South Carolina was very cold and, Anchorage was very warm? I really think that we need to demand that these programs get stopped before any climate treaties, before any climate talks even resume. And I think that's the best way. And I believe that we can get a court injunction based on our proof that geoengineering is going on. How are we going to do that? Well, one part of an unconventional shade of gray is going to be taking an airplane up and getting an air sample. And what we noticed, there are these things in Hawaii, and they're not, occasionally you'll see a trail, and we do see a trail, but what's very common is offshore. We have these things that my friend and fellow activist Bruce Douglas calls chem bombs, and it's these explosions of aerosols. And the reason we know that they're aerosols, he was watching satellite, so he would call me up and predict when these aerosols would be in the air, and we saw from trails what the aerosols turn into. They turn into this wispy type cloud. But he was showing me these anomalies and then would effectively predict when the aerosols would be in the sky, and he was right all the time. Now, time has moved past. We've flown a lot of inter-island flights, and we've actually seen them spraying or dispersing the aerosols from ships. And there's some way that they get them into the upper atmosphere. I don't know how they're going to do that, but our goal, we already have an airplane. We have a capture device, and right now we're just waiting on funding. Hopefully that will come through. You can go to my Facebook page, What in the World Are They Spraying, and look at my GoFundMe campaign for this, and I'll get into some of what I'm doing. But anyways, we are going to, when we see these anomalies, we're going to take a jet up into the sky where they're spraying. We're going to photograph them, dispersing this from a boat, and then take an air sample. And it's going to be very, very powerful. What it will do, it will eliminate the plausible deniability of scientists and government officials who say that what we're seeing is simply condensation trails. And this will be, I think it will revolutionize our movement. It will take away the plausible deniability and conclusively provide proof that these aerosols, what we found in the atmosphere, are changing our climate, and I think that's the conclusive proof that we can use in a lawsuit. So we're talking to attorneys right now, and we're also looking for other attorneys who want to get involved with this, and there are about, probably 1,000 different directions that we're going in terms of a class action lawsuit. But based on the fact that there are global mandates now, and especially California, there's a carbon tax based on this idea that CO2 creates global warming. And, damages from that are going to go into millions probably this year and probably get into the billions over time. And I don't know how a legislator can allow mandates on something that has not been proven and something that is missing a major factor in the climate model. And I think that's where we might want to go. And this is unconstitutional. Our Constitution does not allow the United States to pass treaties with other countries. So it's not going through Congress. But I think our legislators locally, they're allowing this to happen. Obama has a climate change task force. It's 23 mayors and governors who are going out. It's actually a re-education, I think is the word, global or climate change re-education committee. And what they're doing, they're going into local municipalities with a big bag of money and getting our local municipalities to sign on to this new green movement. And it's all based on the CO2, which I think we can conclusively say is completely incorrect because, again, it doesn't include geoengineering programs. And what they're doing is building a structure. It's building a financial and a government structure to micromanage our lives. But more important than that, a structure is being built with, I'm not sure the dollar amount, but a lot of money. And it's being built on something that is not a solid foundation of truth. Now, if they included the ongoing geoengineering programs, it'd be a little more acceptable, but they're not. So the foundation is not strong. And this is just begging for a lawsuit to come. And my goal is to get a lawsuit going right now before they continue to move forward. And if we allow them to move forward, building the structure, and biblical principles tell us, a structure that is not built on a solid foundation will collapse. It will collapse very quickly. And I'd rather see it collapse now than later. I think it's very irresponsible by our political officials to move forward with this because it's going to collapse, and I would rather see it happen before this is completely built so that we can regroup. And I have a lot of concerns. It's again, very irresponsible. And very irresponsible, to move forward. It's not prudent at all in our activism when we push this global warming message. It's actually completely contradictory to what we're trying to achieve. And I really want to stress that.
Yeah, Michael, when you talk about how they go about getting this thing implemented, it's really tops down, but they give the impression of bottoms up, like you said, by going into the local areas and just spreading around a lot of money and getting the buy-in at the local level. This is exactly how Agenda 21 works. I've seen it here in my own town. I live in a small town in North Carolina, and Agenda 21 is alive and well here, and it's because of the money. But now the important thing here that you're going into is capturing the air samples with your capture device. This is very important because, as you know, when I was talking to Max Bliss, he would actually show up at these climate conferences, and he would show, footage and videos of planes clearly spraying. And then what happens is the person looking at it, who is pro-geoengineering, they just look at that video and say, oh, it's just a contrail. And then they turn away and walk away. And that's it. So that's why the actual capturing of the air samples is very important, because now you're getting away from somebody's interpretation of what a contrail looks like, and now you're getting into, okay, let's just take a look at the raw data. Let's take a look at what we have here, what's actually coming out of this airplane. So I think that's a very, very important piece of this, and I congratulate you on taking this approach.
Yes, thank you. And we've been trying to get this done since 2011, and a lot of people think that my bank account is just filled with money because of the exposure that the film's gotten. That couldn't be further from the truth. So right now, we're just getting by, so we need finances with this. So if there's anybody who would like to fund this, get a part of it, please contact me. You can go to the Michael, middle initial letter J, Murphy Facebook page, send me a message, and then we can move forward. But again, it will take away the plausible deniability. Some people, for some reason, were absolutely against this, that I used to collaborate with in the movement, and I can't see who would not want to see this happen, because I want to see David Keith's answer. I want to see Ken Caldera's answer. I want to see Bill Gates' answer to what this might be. And when, again, they're spraying something from a boat, we come up and get an air sample and it tests, which we believe it will, conclusively for the primary ingredients of geoengineering. I think that is going to be very telling and very important with what we're trying to get accomplished, and I think it will be the added evidence that we need in the movement. Now, it's interesting because these scientists, I think Patrick Rohde from San Francisco confronted Ken Caldera, and of course, and then Max has, and they've used this, oh, that's a condensation trail. Well, first, the evidence doesn't support that, but have they tested this? And if they have not tested it, right now it's just a theory.
Exactly.
That it's not scientific. So you have all these people that say, well, I'm a scientist, however, I haven't tested that. And that's just ludicrous because that is not scientific. They cannot conclusively say that that's a condensation trail. And, of course, we have more than enough proof at this time to really conclusively prove that geoengineering is ongoing. And one of the things, An Unconventional Shade of Gray, my third film, is not going to be aimed at trying to prove that these programs are real. We've woken up millions and millions of people. And one thing that, Mike, I would hate to see happen with the movement is people only posting on Facebook, only trying to convince the masses that this is happening. Meanwhile, allowing our government officials, geoengineers, to legalize these programs, which again will take it out of our courts, out of our ability to address this, and them to move forward in a very open, transparent way and a very legal way. So it will prevent us from, I believe, taking any action. So let's look at what we need to stop these programs. And, I spoke to you before the show. I'm going to use this analogy. And I think it's very strong and I think it's very powerful. If your house is burning down, maybe you have a small fire in the basement, is it prudent to go around and try to convince your neighbors that your house is burning down? I don't think so. And the same goes to our activism. It's important to take action. Education is not enough. Education will not. Education only. It's a big part of it. And we've woken up millions of people. We have enough to move forward now with taking legal action, with getting into the climate marches, with protesting. Let's take the remnant that we have, the 10% of the population, and move forward with action because, again, we have to recognize the time and the season of our activism. And right now, it requires action. And the house is burning down, and if your house is burning down, you're not going to be making phone calls to people around the world trying to convince them my house is burning down, because guess what? If you don't do anything, if you don't get water, if you don't call the fire department, your house will be gone. And I think that's where we're at. And some people have been critical for my attempts to get moving forward with a class action lawsuit. It's all we have at the moment. That and the climate meeting in France. And it literally is our Hail Mary. But if it's fourth down, 3 seconds to go, and you have 40 yards to a touchdown, do you do a quarterback sneak, which will get you 2 yards? No. You throw a Hail Mary. And this is where we're at. We have to throw a Hail Mary, or if we don't, we will lose. And again, I'm not judging anyone's activism, because education still is a very important part. However, my activism is in this film, An Unconventional Shade of Gray. It's a call to action. The goal of the film is going to be a smaller market. It's going to be outlining what we must do, what we have to do, the season of our activism. It will be an attempt to activate activists into moving forward with a well-planned structure for a lawsuit and a well-planned game plan to block the climate treaty from going through. So that's going to require not everybody in the movement, but a small amount of people jumping on board. And, I looked at my last films and I said, God, had I initiated a class action lawsuit before What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying, I said we'd have millions of people signed on. And right now it's been a challenge, to get attorneys involved with this. Joe Marmon in California, I spoke to him about his attempts, and we kind of, we looked at some of the things that could have been done differently. So we're going to build on what he had, but really focus in on getting the masses involved. So if we had 1 million people that state that they've had damages, and bottom line, everybody in the world has suffered immense damages from geoengineering, whether it's your food prices, whether it's weather damage, whether it's health. We just lost a very important member, Bridget Conroy of Arizona Skywatch, and I really want to announce this, and it really brings me great sadness because she was one of the pioneers. She held firmly and strongly in truth and integrity within this movement, but she unfortunately had lung cancer and had just passed 2 days ago. And, there's a good chance that is a factor involved with their death. So, again, we're looking at getting people who are aware of this activated. The popularity contest, the moving forward, the getting as much exposure as we can, I don't think that's going to stop what we must stop this year. So I think that we have to really look at, the season of our activism, what is going to be effective. And I'm moving towards getting these programs stopped, and I would hate to be a popular figure where everybody knows about geoengineering. Meanwhile, this stuff gets passed. I don't think there's time for that right now. And I think, again, and I keep on repeating this, the way that we move forward at this time is not only significant, it's the most important thing that we can do. So let's look at our activism, not the activism of others, and realize what our part in this play is and how to move forward. And again, if you're on board with the class action lawsuit, if that resonates with you, if you're on board for getting the air sample, which people have been asking us to do for years, if you're on board for blocking this global legislation, I think that these are the only things that will stop this right now. Then please go to geoengineeringactionnetwork.org, and we're just building that website, but what it will be when we complete it, when we get some finances in, and promote an unconventional shade of gray, it will be a website and a network where people can come to get legal advice, how to move forward, whether it's at the state level, international level, and to get people to sign on the lawsuit. You can go there now, actually, and provide your name and information and what damages you think that you've moved forward. Because, again, I'm talking to attorneys. We don't have anybody conclusively committed to this yet. But the more names that we have, the more appealing, the more, I think, the better chance that we have for a law firm or an attorney to take this on, or even a group of attorneys. I think that we need a whole bunch of them. So 1 million people signed on to this. I think that we have a very strong lawsuit. So let's get active. It's that time.
Now, Michael, you made a very interesting comment before, and I just wanted to circle back a little bit, but you had said that you have received some criticisms for what you're doing with your new film and getting the air samples and trying to get an injunction in place through the legal process. Now, for the life of me, I'm trying to figure out what those criticisms would be, because I agree with you that it's time to take it to the next level. We have the whole education process. It served a purpose. It still does, but now it's got to shift into action mode. So what are some of those criticisms, just for my own curiosity?
Well, if you want to get criticized, there's one thing that will make it 100% predictable that you will get criticized, and that's taking action. There are a lot of armchair quarterbacks out there, or people who you should on me. And what I mean by, and now I'm saying, please don't you should on me. And what that means is, I get thousands of emails of people that say, you should do X, Y, and Z. You should do this. And I want to be real firm. For those who have sent those emails, perhaps you meant to say, I should do X, Y, and Z. And the most important thing, I think, in our activism is to do what we're called to do. And I think that we all have many roles that are very important. That role is not putting our will on somebody else. This is not going to get solved if you have a vision for what needs to be done. It will not get solved if you pass that off to somebody else. And that's really important. Bottom line, this is the vision that I've had, and I've been very open about this. This is what I'm doing. I'm moving forward. I'm going to do what I can. It's very risky, what we're doing. I don't know if an attorney is going to touch this, but it's our Hail Mary. I do not know what we're going to find up in the atmosphere. We believe it's going to be geoengineering, but there are a lot of factors involved. We might not get that airplane up to collect a sample in time. There's a possibility that they could just spray steam, inert water up in the sky. There are a lot of factors. So I'm putting my reputation literally on the line for this. But, and then blocking the France Treaty, who knows what's going to happen. But again, it's the only thing that we have right now at the moment, and it's so important. So this is what I'm doing. But I think it's really important not to look at other people and say, you should be doing this, Search your heart. If this makes sense to you, please, come on board. Work with us in moving forward. We definitely need people. Do we need the whole movement? No, we just need a remnant. And if you look back in history for those who have really made some changes, like Aaron Brockovich, just to name one of many examples, it didn't take 5 million people. it was a small team. However, the more support we have, the more power we will have. So I think a shift has to happen, and I keep on stressing this because I feel it's the most important thing right now. A shift has to happen with our activism. Nobody is taking action, they're educating. And, when you go into the Army, not that I support military actions or, going over and invading other countries, it's important to defend ourselves. It's important to take action when we're being attacked. So I want to make my boundaries very clear with that. However, I don't support the military action, but I do know that soldiers go into basic training, and that's their education so that they're equipped to go out and take action to defend their country or do whatever they have to do militarily. We have had our basic training, and I'd hate to see all of our troops in the classroom while being attacked, while this legislative process plays out, and us not taking action. I think that's where we are. So it's important to identify, where we have fallen short, and that includes me. That definitely includes me. This, I'm hitting myself on the head going, why didn't I see this, 2 years ago? Why didn't I see this? Had we seen it, we would have been more prepared to deal with the time. But I also believe that truth is the most powerful weapon out there, and they've been setting the stage for this for well over 20 years. They've been putting billions of dollars into this research, into the programs, and we can do it with a very small fraction of the amount of money, the amount of time, if we stand firm in truth and integrity. And we will move mountains, Mike. We will. 2015 as a year that will be like no other. And some of us have taken a lot of beatings. We've had, these character assassinations. A lot of things have happened to us. For standing firm with this message that I'm talking about right now, for not supporting global warming, which will legalize geoengineering, and in us standing firm, because we have passed the test, we are strong. And that goes for everybody that's going into the climate meetings. That goes for everybody that's going to move forward with action, with tangible action. We are strong, we are powerful. We will do this, damn it. There's no other choice.
Well, and I want to speak to the audience now, Michael. So, to the audience, for those that want to stop the geoengineering agenda, we want to see our blue skies again, I'm going to highly, highly recommend you go to Michael's GoFundMe page, which is Michael J. Murphy's Next Film, and donate. Just make a donation. Because if you believe in what Michael's doing, if you believe that, we need to go this route, and my personal belief is, Mike Williams' belief is that we do have to go this route. Because I agree with you, Michael, the education aspect of it is basically wheel spinning to a large degree at this point in time, and we do have to move it to the next level of action. So to the audience, I will have the link in the show notes below. Please click on it and make a donation that you feel comfortable with. And let's get this thing going.
I agree with you. And geoengineers, the scientists, the people behind these programs, they're not concerned if 1 million more people are aware of this. They're not concerned if the entire country is. They're concerned about passing global legislation and blocking our ability to take legal action. So we have to recognize that, recognize the importance of this. And I'd hate to be crying wolf, And again, for those who are educating people, thank you so much for what you're doing. And we would not be to the level that we're at without your support and your activism. But let's look at ways to continue educating. Meanwhile, let's put a percentage, and hopefully a large percentage, of our activism into putting out the fire or into taking action. There's no other. This is the season, and I can't stress that enough. And while I have great concerns that we've let it go this far, I have gone through a lot of challenges myself. And it seems like it's always been at the last minute when God used me or somebody else to intervene and move forward and to, do great work. And that time is now. I'm very excited as well. I'm kind of dreading the, 80-hour weeks, which I see, but that's what's going to happen. And I know some people had some concerns about the France Climate Treaty moving forward. That is certainly the goal. And yes, it is almost certain that geoengineering, without question, will be legalized. And it will make our work exponentially more challenging, but we have to stand, we have to recognize, we have to get active. Geoengineering Action Network will, when we're able to get a team moving forward, we'll have a clear, concise action plan that will be legally backed, and we will be taking stands around the world, not only to educate, but to educate people on how to take action, encourage them to take action. And this is going to be, I believe, the largest class action lawsuit in the history of the planet. I mean, we've all suffered major damages from this. So let's get on board. I also want to stress, I've been speaking to attorneys. We have attorneys that want to move forward with us. However, we don't have any firm commitments yet, people who have committed to this. And I think that's even more a reason to provide, and some people might be weary about doing this, but to provide, your information, what damages you think that you have suffered. Now, people say, well, maybe Michael's just trying to collect information so they know who the geoengineering activists. Let me be clear. NSA has been spying on you. Providing me, who has been very open about this, with information I'm not going to run to the NSA. They already know who you are. So let's move forward and not move forward in fear. Let's move forward, fearless, because we've let it go too far. We've let it go too long. And again, I keep on repeating this, and this may sound like a broken record. And when I see something that's extremely important, yes, I will say it 1,000 times. I will say it 1,000,000 times. I will repeat this on every radio show. Now is the time that we have to take action.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the whole NSA thing. So if you are already posting on Facebook and you're writing emails about geoengineering and you're visiting websites and blogs and so on, trust me, you're already on their radar, if that's what you're concerned about. Oh, boy.
Oh, I knew that would be a concern of people, so I thought it was really important to address that. No, we're going to work with you in moving forward to take action. I'm doing the best job that I can, and with what I have, I'm working with the means that I have at the moment. So the more people involved, again, the more effective that we will be.
Yeah, and Michael, going back to the NSA for 1 second, not to belabor it, but in my view, a lot of this whole NSA discussion is about self-surveillance. So in other words, if they tell people and make you think that everything that you do is being watched and eyeballed, then you're going to watch yourself and you're going to censor yourself. So you made a very important remark before, which is don't live in fear. Just push through the fear and do the right thing.
Yeah, and bottom line is, fear is debilitating. Fear does not increase our vibration so that we become powerful. It puts us in a box. And, everybody has their own style of activism, but I think fear is not going to get to stop pushing fear, or what I think you said, it's kind of fear porn. I've heard that statement before, is not going to get this solved. Telling people how bad this is only is not going to get it solved, although it's part of waking people up. But again, recognizing what's happening, move forward with great hope that we are powerful as human beings. And, you look at a mustard seed and the faith. If we had a mustard seed size of faith, it can literally move mountains. And, in a year, I don't know what I will be saying. I'm not sure where we will be with the movement, but I will conclusively be able to say I did the best that I could with what we had. I recognized the time and I took action. And bottom line, it's really in God's hands, but besides this, and we're working hard. And that's what I'm called to do. So I don't know what the turnout is going to be, but I have great faith that it will be effective.
Now, Michael, with the commitment from some of these law firms, is the commitment being held up due to, is it money? They need more money, or is it I'm not really sure I want to engage in this type of legality?
Both. They wanted just under $1 million, one of the law firms. I'm not going to say which one it was. And we had another activist who's done some great legal work who, informed me about that. It was Lexi who's worked, hard in terms of the legal ramifications related to this. Another, was kind of concerned about moving forward on his own. He worked for a law firm And that was just the basic concern. He was a little concerned about what his colleagues might think. They might call him a conspiracy theory. So that has been effective. The mainstream media has been very effective at labeling people conspiracy theorists, in that it's the fear, of people being called a conspiracy theorist. As you know, Mike, I've been called many things publicly on certain websites and other things.
I'm with you, my friend.
It's not going to slow me down, but we have to recognize not everybody is where we're at. Not everybody recognizes the importance, and sometimes, career and the cares of life can get in the way, and that's just reality. What we have to do is not really count on other people to move forward. I'm not waiting for an attorney because of the season. I'm literally putting my credibility, my reputation on the line, but you know what? Again, I've been called many things publicly, many things that aren't true. And, so we can't be concerned about reputations, taking risks. And yeah, this is a risk for me personally, but, in 20 years, is it really going to matter? Is it going to matter to my ego, me personally? We can't think like that. We have to do with what we're called to do. And this might, be a small building block in terms of how we need to proceed forward. Maybe somebody else will pick this up. I don't know. All I am aware of is that this is what I am called to do, and I'm moving forward as best that I can, and I can commit to that.
Well, it's living in truth and doing the right thing. That's what you have to do. Too many people are too concerned about how they're going to be labeled. Like you said, they're going to be called a conspiracy theorist or a tinfoil hat wearer and all that stuff. You got to brush that off, folks. And you have to do the right thing. So even for the attorneys that are out there, just suck it up and do the right thing. Now, Michael, is there a timeout for you on this? In other words, I'm assuming that the runway at a certain point runs out of runway. So have you given any thought to when this all has to get wrapped up and presented?
Yes, well, I will, at the end of the month, and it's May 2015 for those who are listening to this later, I will be traveling to work with my editor in producing a funding trailer. So the GoFundMe campaign was to provide a trailer. And the trailer has a couple of reasons. Yes, we want to move forward with the film. I am almost actually complete. Thank you to everybody who's funded my GoFundMe campaign, because I already have about 10 interviews for this. We just finished interviewing Cynthia McKinney, a lot of other great activists, and a lot of other well-known science climatists. I'm sorry, I did not say that correctly, did I? Climate scientists. Maybe I did say it correctly. But anyways, so we're going to release a funding trailer, and hopefully that will give enough resources to complete the aerosol collection project with the plane. We're hoping to do several of those. Cost about $6,000 per test. And again, there are a lot of variables, so we want to do it scientifically and have a number of different tests available to provide this to some folks that are involved with the legal process. And then also editing a film, a full feature film requires a lot of graphics and editing. Right now, I'm just making it by. I am close to getting everything that I have asked for the funding campaign. I was hoping to get the aerosol sample in, but we fell, believe it or not, we're about $5,000, $6,000 down. So I've gotten enough to travel around the country, which I've been doing for the past 4 months. And again, I want to thank everybody. I've gotten enough to get a funding trailer complete, and I have raised enough money to release this. And then hopefully, I'm hoping that this trailer, we're going to provide enough structure in it so that people will know where to go and they will know what action to take. So it's mainly, I was interested initially at getting a trailer complete, just something short in a very professional manner, which would set the tone of our agenda. And that's, again, to move forward with a class action lawsuit and to block the climate treaty in France. We're doing it, and it fit right within my timeline. So that's number one. And once I get that released, we will see what kind of finances come in. I'll see where I'm living. There are a lot of unknowns at this time, and we'll do the best that we have with what we have. So it's important to get involved with this.
Now, Michael, is it possible, and I'm just throwing this out there, but we know that Max Bliss is going to be presenting at the July conference in Paris. This is kind of the table setting for December. Is it possible that your samples, your capture, can be done in time so that I don't even know if Max would do this, but to incorporate it into his presentation in July?
If we are well funded, we will have everything complete. We will have a film released by October. And I mean, that's it. When I mean I'm down to the wire, I'm working on this full time, no income coming in other than people supporting my work, or very little. I make about maybe $90 a week, believe it or not. So we will see where we're at. I have my running shoes on, and it's very important. So we're working on doing this off of Hawaii because in the Pacific or over open water, there are no fly zones. So it's a very risky project. However, I'm definitely going to make it public before I go up. But if we get a conclusive air sample, and we're talking about literally trillions of potential dollars being transferred on this global warming issue, if we can break this wide open, I think it's kind of risky going up. But I'm going to go up. I'm going to film this. I'm going to do this because it's what needs to be done. And so, yeah, it's plausible if people support or even pre-order a film, and that's kind of what we've done with What in the World Are They Spraying, Why in the World Are They Spraying. We gave people the opportunity, because we needed resources to make the film, to pre-order, and that gave us enough to get it complete. So I will have that funding trailer up hopefully the first week or the second week in June. After that, we'll see what resources come in. I'd love to go to the France climate meeting. That's up in the air, pending how effective we are in collaborating with the group and supporting each other with the finances that we need. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Now, Michael, one last question, because I know you're busy and you have to run. Now, with the capture device, how high are these chem bombs going up into the atmosphere? Because I know, like, the planes themselves are easily flying at around, well, some of them are flying lower than 40,000. Many of them are way up there. So what kind of aircraft are you going to be utilizing to do the capture?
We are in talks with pilots with small private planes.
Okay.
So and we looked. It's over $1,000 an hour. So on rare occasions, we get these bombs or these aerosol disbursements that come within 400 miles of Hawaii. But most of them are about 1,000 miles out. So we're estimating it being about a 5 or 6 hour flight. And again, there are a lot of variables, so we're going to need to, get up there. It might take 1 or 2 tries. But, this has been something that people have been encouraging me to do throughout the years. And again, with the free film, even though it's won awards and everything else, there's not a whole lot in there to live. And I've been living very frugally. But if there's ever a time really to get involved with this, Bruce Douglas has really woke me up to this and has really done a lot of the legwork, and it's a waiting game right now. So we're going to get that bird or the airplane up into the sky as soon as we can. And again, it will change the dynamics of this movement exponentially, and I think it's what we need.
Okay, excellent. Now, Michael, to wrap up, I know you're going to want to run through some of the websites and your GoFundMe page. We'll do that one more time to make sure that we finalize the interview with that information so that you can get some help. So, the GoFundMe page?
GoFundMe right now is just I believe it's Michael J. Murphy's third film. Since we've completed this, I think I'm going to rename this, if it will allow me to, An Unconventional Shade of Gray. You can go to my Facebook page, which is What in the World Are They Spraying, the Facebook page, and I will do my best to have it pinned to the top. Every time I pin this funding campaign to the top of the page, for some reason, it gets lost. I notice every couple of days they unpin it or somebody unpins it. Facebook doesn't allow me to pin it, but that's very interesting. We also, to help support our work and the activism, we encourage people to go to whyintheworldAreTheySpraying.com, order a DVD. We're encouraging everybody who orders a DVD to make as many copies as you can, hand these out for free, and it achieves 2 things. It helps many people become aware of these programs, and again, throughout our conversation, I'm not saying that we should not continue to wake people up, but that should be part of our activism. We definitely need to take action now in terms of getting involved. So go to whyintheworldAreTheySpraying.com. We also have activism shirts. And I also started selling a very good chelator, and it's MSM sulfur, and that helps me to get by every month and eat. And that page is organicsulfur.net. It's a very important supplement to be taking, and I think that has a lot of benefits. I've been getting a lot of really good reviews on people who have started taking that.
Excellent. All righty. Well, Michael, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. And look, I just want to personally tell you that I applaud your efforts. I had to just kind of roll my eyes before when you said about, people criticizing what you're doing, and I just think to myself, it's just sometimes that's the aspect that we have to break through. People are just naysayers and armchair quarterbacks and questioning, these types of things. But in the meantime, what are they really doing at the end of the day other than criticizing? And the answer is not a lot. So, but you're doing a tremendous amount of work. So from Mike Williams to Michael Murphy, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for really bringing awareness and helping us to get, our agenda out. And again, I've spoken to a lot of people, and a lot of people are supportive, so don't get me wrong, but there are always a couple armchair quarterbacks out there, and guess what? They're not the type of people that we really want to get involved with our work if they're going to create division and criticize and all these other things. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a time to address things when you see very damaging things come into the movement. Of course, we've had the opportunity to do that during certain radio shows, and there's a time and a season for that. But again, we really need people to move forward with what they're called to do. And bottom line is, look at your own activism. Instead of saying you should be doing this, I think the best thing is to say, how could I change? How could I be more effective? And that's what we did, and I've been collaborating for about 7-8 months with this, talking to attorneys, talking to many other activists, and we believe that this is the most effective way to move forward with this. And bottom line, some people are working at, legislation at the local and the state level. That might be effective. I'm not sure, and I'm certainly not criticizing it, but my concern is that if this global climate treaty moves forward, that there will be a time when we go to either our state senators or even to the federal level and talk to our elected officials. And I think the time is coming very soon where they will respond and say, this is out of my jurisdiction. We have no say over these global mandates. So we have to do this now. I would like to be doing a lot of other things at the moment, but we have to recognize the time, the season, and the most effective way to move forward in our activism.
Very good, Michael. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll have the show out, Michael. I'm going to get it out as quickly as I possibly can. So I'm going to say by middle of next week so that this can help you get the word out and help you get some traction.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And that concludes my interview with Michael Murphy, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Michael's website can be found at www.whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com and at www.stopspraying.us. His GoFundMe site is called Michael J. Murphy's Next Film, and the site can be found by typing in www.gofundme.com/MRI4ES. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.